Alrighty. Uh, Welcome to the first episode of season 2 of 2022 of the One Last Cast podcast. My name is Jonathan. How's it going, everybody? Um, so, uh, sorry about that. Um, so, this is the first episode of season 2 of the One Last Cast podcast. My name is Jonathan. For those of you who are new to this, I am a kayaker, blogger, writer. Been in the industry for a little bit. We also have my co-host here, Merriel Solesky. He's a kayak guide, pro staff member of Hobie at FTU. Been around for a while as well. And we're here to kind of talk fishing about specifically on the Texas coast. We're both based out of Galveston, and that's kind of where home waters are. But I know Merrill, I think he probably should. He's probably going to end up living in Corpus because he spends most of his time down there. It looks like. um, Welcome to our show. And today's going to be a good one. We're going to kick it off by talking about Corkies and some subsurface plugs, some of the popular trout baits that we are using around the winter time right now. But before we do that, let's kind of give a shout out to some of our sponsors of the show. They help make this possible. We have 4A Printing. They do our custom towels. So if you win prizes with us, you also get a towel. Last week we gave away a Shimano SLX. The winner also got a towel with that. He loves it. Also, Dirty South Kayak Anglers. If you're looking for a fishing group to talk fishing and learn about kayaking or otters, go over there and join them. It's a good group of people over there. And of course, we have the Knocking Tail Lures. We just wanted to share something with y'all. One of our big news that we have is that if you're looking to try out these Knocking Tail Lures, currently you can get 20% off your order from Knocking Tail Lures using the code OLCP 2022. That is OLCP 2022. Get 20% off your Knocking Tail Lure purchase. And if you haven't seen them in action before, they're actually being used right now on the outdoor channel, the show Big Water Adventures. I think their next showing is on Thursday, February 3rd, which is tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or if you're don't watch TV during the week, you can watch it on the weekend, Saturday, February 5th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I know it's a mouthful. So Merrill, how has the fishing been the last weeks or so? I know we haven't been on for a little bit, so let's kind of give an overview.
Yeah, man, it's been pretty good, man. Pretty successful trips. I don't think we had a bad trip. We had a couple of them when we had to grind for it, but I guess just being on the water is good,
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been using actually Knocking Tail lures, so that's all we've been using recently. It's definitely a unique bait, and I think there's something about that rattle on the tail that makes it very unique. Sometimes when the bite, they're being a little bit difficult. Sometimes you want to grab their attention, and man, it's been a pretty good bait so far. Mainly been throwing the Texas roach, the darker colors, and then the white ice looking one. So those are the two top colors I've been using. I usually like to use pink, but haven't been able to throw it recently. I've just been kind of throwing those two colors, and they've been successful. So it's like, why change it if it's working?
Yeah, why change it? I've been throwing them. I've been throwing them since for a couple of years now, and this has actually been my go-to color. Is this the chartreuse one? It has a little bit of white in it, as well as the plum chartreuse. They've been working really well for me. Haven't caught any big trout on it yet, but then again, I've only been able to go out a few times these last couple of weeks, which has been a shame because I know the bite has been really good.
Yes.
But when I did go out, I got on a couple 4-pound trout, some redfish with them, and they've been just hammering them. And like you said, I think that that rattle in the tail is a very good enticer for the bite. And I will say that actually last year it was that flounder season for last year was one of the better ones that I've had, and I was using exclusively those. Besides the knock and tail lures, we're here to talk about the Corkies and subsurface plugs. These are very, very hot trout baits right now. I mean, if you've been on the Texas coast and you haven't heard Corkies, get out from under that rock,
Yeah.
because that's what everybody talks about now. And of course, we have those subsurface plugs that are that kind of, I think there's a little bit of ebb and flow within the industry. Just as new things come out, people start talking about them, start using them. I know they're staples in a lot of people's boxes. Um, but what are your thoughts on Corkies? Oh, and I guess for those of you who are watching live, which if you want to watch us live, we go live for the One Last Cast podcast. We go live every other Wednesday. Just go to facebook.com/One Last Cast podcast. There you can watch our live streams where you can ask questions. Also, we actually have episodes that are not published on our podcast platform. So we have some exclusive content on there if you wanted to see those. But for those of you live, if you're not aware what a Corky is, this is what a Corky looks like. This is the Merriel brand, Paul Brown's Fat Boy. There is a whole story, which we should get. I don't know. I don't have any.
Steve.
Yeah, we should. We should get Steve on here.
You want to?
We'll try to get Steve on here.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Man, I used to buy lures from Steve when it was some of the brokebacks out of like the Walmarts and stuff like that. He's got a store now.
Yeah, definitely we should try to get Steve on here. But so this is the Paul Brown lure maker. I believe he lived on like the Sagemont area, Sage Glen area, off of towards the south side of Houston. He used to sell these lures out of his garage. They're basically these cork lures with a with the plastic on the outside. And the reason why people like them and the reason why he made them is because he wanted to make a lure that was slow sinking, that stayed in strike zone longer, and also provided a larger profile for these, trophy trout. I'm not exactly sure how the whole story is, but definitely it got bought up by Mirror Lure, but these are a lot of the people go to for these big trophy trout. And I guess, like, what are your thoughts on this? Just kind of give us a little rundown of what you think about these Corkies.
They're addicting. And it's one of those baits. Like once you tie them on, you're kind of, and then you get the hang of it. It took me a while to get the hang of it, and it's kind of like most of the times when I'm fishing for trout, it's the fall action that gives me the most action. And that one, if you have a pool or if you have a lot of water where you can work it and see your lure and how it falls and how it works, that would be a good advice to practice and watch it and see it. So that way, when you're out there fishing it, you can actually, you can actually know what you're doing out there on the water, and you know what
you can visualize it. You can visualize it better. Yeah.
I hate to say you can feel it because I'm just one of those. I'm like one of those anglers that's been just like throwing lures for so long. I kind of like know exactly what my bait's doing and where it's at and stuff like that. But I like to share a story though. Whenever you get a chance, we get a chance.
Oh, yeah. No, let's start right now.
Oh, you want to do it right now? I mean, we can.
Let's do it right now.
Oh, okay. So I made a post about it, but it was one of those. So we've been. I've been kind of doing it in trips like later on in the day because when it's real cold, it seems to be the water starts warming up and the fish become more active, especially if there's a major at the end of the day or towards the afternoon. We've been doing pretty successful doing that, but sometimes the clients want to go early in the morning and they have a small window, so that's the option. That's the situation we had. And I remember I even called you. I thought a kayaker was you. And I was like, man, is that you? I saw it because, not too many people fish that area, the people that know about that area. He definitely wasn't fishing like you. So I was like, man, this guy's, Jonathan's acting weird on his kayak. So I called you because the kayak looked like just like yours, your light blue one. And, well, we seen them. And this is a change for me because I've actually got to see on a depth finder, because usually I don't use fish finders, and I've dabbled with it here and there. I just never committed to it. but having side imaging and down imaging and actually like just looking at it, we're actually seeing the fish, right? And they
Probably
were just
sitting right next to those drop offs.
no, they were sitting in the deeper
Oh, okay.
parts
Yeah.
because I think because of the pressure was kind of high,
Okay. Yeah.
and so but we couldn't catch those. So I'm throwing everything at them, and we were getting bites and short strikes, and like they were just like hitting it and letting it go. I was like, man, and so I was like, you know what, let's just keep looking, and we finally come up across this pocket I've never even known existed in that area, and it has structure by it. So we tried that one, and something caught my attention on the fish finder as we're going there. So it was kind of like 6 foot, 7 foot, 8, 9, 12, 13, 15, and then bam, like a big old pocket, And I noticed that how they were waiting behind those when it was transitioning off. And it looked to me like they were moving upwards and then towards this the bulkhead.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, man, so we drifted over this big deep pocket, nothing. And we drifted one more time, and I was like, you know what? Let's keep drifting and keep working. And then, sure enough, man, I just cast it. Boom, we got one. And then we just started nailing. After that, once we figured out the rhythm, I think I was using a 3/8 ounce jig head with the roach with the knocking tail lure with the rattle in it, and we just lit them up. After that, we just kept drifting the same area. And it was just, we just couldn't get the ones in the deep to bite. Like usually when I see them down there, I was like, oh yeah, they'll eat, and we'll work it with the current coming down the current, and then get them to eat. But
yeah, I think there's something to be said about using what we have available, such as the fish finder, and using those to find the fish and establish that pattern.
Right. So yeah, my game's definitely going to start changing from now on. I think I'm gonna get me a good one, and definitely side imaging's a must. Going to be a must for me, and down imaging. Yeah, man, my game's going to be changing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So with these slow sinking fat boys, obviously a lot of people who know about them, a lot of people talk about this as a wintertime bait, and I would like to disagree in a sense, because obviously we're going to talk a little bit more about how to use them now, because it is something that works now really well. But I want you to think about and I'm talking to our listeners out there. I want you to think about how these baits, they could put their potential uses for every other time outside of winter. I mean,
I use them year round. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
year round.
yes.
They're not just a wintertime bait. And of course and I think we said this at some point. We were talking. We talked about a little bit about Corkies in a previous episode, but there's the whole adage that people will say about Corkies is like, if you think you're working it too slow, work it slower.
Right.
And I would say, with that, you can work it fast. It just depends on what the fish are acting like in that area.
Yeah.
And actually, I like to give a little bit story of my own.
Yeah.
This is
Go for it.
actually my best night fishing trip I had, besides my personal best that I caught out of a canal in the lights. When I fished out at night, I believe it was actually February. It was a full moon, and we were out there at like 11 o'clock, and we were running around in a boat, just reef hopping. We're just going to different reefs, kind of following the tide as it flowed out with the outgoing tide. And we're just hopping on these reefs, and basically we would motor up to these reefs and we would listen. And just if we heard bait, jumping and moving around, we'd hop out and wait it. If we didn't hear anything, we left and went somewhere else. But basically, every single place that we hopped out at, we caught fish, and that's because and we were using these Corkies, and we were listening for these bait. And it was like 3 o'clock, and it was the tail end of one of these tides, and we were kind of tired at that point. We got to this last spot, and it was, this is like February. I think it was in the upper, at the end of that, by that time at night, or I guess early morning, it was in the upper 20s about the temperature. And we were in knee deep water casting out to this channel. But I was working it slow and I wasn't getting anything. And I was kind of tired. So my buddy, though, he was just basically like, just twitch,
Top
twitch,
water
twitch.
action,
Yeah,
right?
basically top water with these Corkies and just like
Yes.
burning it back. And he was
Yeah.
getting hammered. I think back to back casts, he pulled up fish that were like little around 5 pounds on trout. And it was just, and then I started just working it back real quick, just like that. And it all picked up. And of course, when we got there, the reason why I hopped out of the last spot is because it just sounded like mullet jumping every single second. You could just
Right.
hear him, and you could hear him swimming. Um, and So that was one of our best nights where we caught multiple trout over 5 pounds. Nothing huge. I think he went out there one day and he caught multiples that were like 7 and 8. We didn't have a day like that, but we caught multiple fish over 5 pounds, and it was kind of an eye-opening night experience because I usually don't fish at night like that. To find that even whenever it's upper 20 degrees, which is cold for around here, they were still, hitting these Corkies basically on a very, very aggressive kind of cadence.
Right.
I tried top water to see if they would hit. They would not hit top water.
Right.
But it almost seemed like you should have thrown a top water on. They would have hit it. But just let the bait in the area dictate what you kind of do, or let the fish also help you dictate what you do with these kind of baits. So yeah. I'm going to open this up just so that we kind of get a better look at it. So I think another question a lot of people have with these Corkies is like, where do you want to use them? And how deep is too deep for these Corkies? I'll kind of have you answer that one.
Yeah, man, I've actually used Corkies, and you're not going to believe me, in like 7 feet of water. Sounds crazy. I typically don't. I use them in shallow waters, 5 feet or less. But I've actually caught them in 7 feet of water with the fat boys. And it reminded me of a story when you were saying that. Actually, me and I believe it was Jameson were out there, and when I was throwing fat boys, typically I usually throw them slow and let them fall, and I was burning my bait back, and boom, I got a hit, and I was like, wow, they might like the faster retrieval. So I started working it like a top water, and started getting hit, and he was like, what are you doing? I was like, dude, work it fast, work it like a top. Man, he started hooking up. We both started hooking up, and it reminds me of the same kind of story. But this was actually at nighttime. It's like at 2:00 in the morning. We were out fishing. Anyways, but that reminded me of it. But yeah, man, I know some people, they like the loop knot in it, like a small loop knot, or they'll tie it straight, with braid, or they'll use leaders. I know there's different techniques. By habit, I use a leader on it. I put a leader on it, and I don't know if I still tie loop knots. I think I still do. It's just a habit. Sometimes I just tie the knot, or I'll have it on the rod already because I fish it so much it's already on the rod. But yeah, typically I'll use a loop knot in it. But I've thrown it in 7 feet of water, 8 feet of water.
Yeah.
Do I do that often? No, I didn't. But I was just curious because of the area I was in, and man, they hammered that bait so bad.
Yeah, I think that one of the limiting factors, because it sinks so slow, that it's just, for me personally, I consider my style of fishing more power fishing. Like, I move around a lot. I work quick. I'm looking for those active and feeding fish. That's why the Corky, even though I used it a lot more towards the winter, it's not that much of it is a staple, but it's towards the end of the box kind of thing. I have to know the fish are there, and I'll have to use it. I've used it in like, I think the deepest I ever used it was probably about 10 to 12 feet of water. But it was more of like, I'm casting out there and I'm just like shooting the breeze with my buddy who's, next to me. Yeah. And waiting for it to finally hit bottom, and then we can slowly work it back. And that can be frustrating sometimes, especially if the bite's really good and the
Right.
fish are down there.
Right.
And it's even more frustrating if like, okay, they're in 12 feet of water, we know they're there, and if you throw soft plastic and they don't touch it, they don't touch
Right.
soft plastic. They really want the larger profile of the Corky, and the slow sinking action that it has. So that can be frustrating sometimes. So
Right.
you can use it in any depth of water. It's just you gotta be patient with it.
Right.
I've heard some people they weigh them down a little bit. I know there's some of these like stickers that you can put on that are basically like lead, and you have to experiment with it a little bit. That you can just stick onto the lure itself, and it will sink. Um, Depending on what they're trying to do, sometimes they center it so that it sink because this thing sinks. It's supposed to sink straight up and down.
Right.
Um, so they'll center it, but sometimes they'll off center it so that however they understand how they want it to work and they'll do whatever. But that way it'll sink faster. Um, but I guess for those of you who haven't used it, so Merrill, what do you do to use it? So what do you
I know
take it
some
out of the
people.
package? Yeah, go
No,
ahead.
no, I leave it in the package and then throw it with the loop on top of the package. No. Now, I know some people, they bend the back end. They bend the back of the Corky. Um, excuse me. And I don't. I just take it out of the package, have a leader on, and I use a loop knot and throw it just like that. I go through probably, I want to say about somewhere around the ballpark, about 40 or 50 pink fat boys. I use that one the most.
Oh yeah.
The pink and glitter one.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe a handful of the other colors, but I mainly just throw that one fat boy.
Yeah.
I don't know if color matters, if it's more confidence when it comes to fat boys, but I've been in situations where they didn't want the pink, and then I put on a different color, and it's like maybe they're hungry now. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
Um,
go ahead.
Yeah. So for me, depending on the situation, if I wanted that really slow kind of sync rate, I'll keep it like it is out of the package. Of course, I do upgrade the hooks because the hooks on there aren't the best. Um, and I will use either VMC or Gamakatsu. Uh, I
You don't
whatever I
just bend the hooks back like I do with the
no
pliers.
no because I've
The day you got two of them squished together, two of the hooks squished together, like that's the best I could do with pliers.
yeah no I um I've lost too many fish on these
Hooks.
with these hooks, mainly because I don't wash my stuff and they'll rust out real quick. And so yeah, I'll use the VMC or the Gamakatsu. I'll keep the split ring on here, even though I probably should change those out as well. But I I choose those. They're arbitrary for me, mainly because I just choose what's cheap. I found on a clearance rack. Like I'll do the 2X or 3X that's on clearance if I can find them. Um, I've been experimenting with Mustad recently just to see how well they hold up some of their 2X, 3X and 4X that they have, and that's something that maybe for another episode because these stronger hooks they also affect the action of the lure because they're heavier. So that's something also to consider that I'm experimenting with. But so yeah, during the whenever I really want that slow action, I'll keep it as it is. But if I wanted to sink a little bit quicker and try to get down to the bottom, I don't know if this is actually true or not, but I bend it. So I'll bend it down.
Oh,
And
so
now,
you're one of those guys that bends it back into? All right.
yeah, I'll bend it. I'll bend the back end. Originally, that whenever I was started fishing, that's how I was taught, like to do it. I don't know if that's if it does anything. This is how I fish it most of the time, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And yeah, so whenever you catch a fish, the fish, your trout would actually a lot of times I'll have either they'll inhale it or they're just caught on the back hook and they'll bend the heck out of this, um, because it's cork on the inside. You just have to make sure you bend it back because if it's off centered a little bit, whenever you work it, it works really wonky in the water if you don't get it straight. Um, so
That is one of the downfalls to those baits is
yeah,
if he doesn't inhale it in its back in his throat or back in his mouth, and it's out the edge of his mouth, that bait's probably going to get tore up. Or if a redfish gets a hold of it, most of the time when you see a redfish on that Corky, you already know that Corky is probably going to be shot, or you have to fix it.
And plus, they're like $8 to $10 a pop.
Yeah. So that's one of the downfalls of those baits is always adjusting it, always fixing it. And you could feel it, right? So if you have a good enough rod, a sensitive enough rod, you can feel the action of your Corky, and it's not feeling right. It feels wonky. It's reeling in funny, and you usually can feel it off the tip. And I don't use like big pops or big nicks. Most of the times I'm just barely just like popping it, just popping it and letting it drop and giving it a moment to fall.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so for me, I see a question within our comments that we have here. Like, how long do you wait until you start working it, and how do you work these Corkies? So it kind of depends on the situation. If we're working it, for me personally, if I'm working it slow, actually it's very, very, because this thing, if you have the right rod and reel set up, actually just the right rod, the reel kind of matters too, but if you have the right rod, you could basically just lift it slightly.
Right.
And
you're not working it like a rat tail or you're totally working it different. You're working in more of a, if you can have it in a pool or body or somewhere in water where you can see as you work your rod and how it looks, because you're not like popping it like a jerk shad or anything like that. So hopefully that helps you guys.
I will say that sometimes I do work it like that. Even in winter, again, it just depends on what's being displayed.
Right, correct.
Yeah. So for me, like, you just kind of toss it out there, kind of understand. You have to understand where what you're casting at, how deep the area is. If you want to work it towards a surface, you kind of just slowly reel it in and kind of constantly, twitch it slow,
right,
and to keep it surface. But if you went out towards the bottom, you let it go to the bottom. And then you just kind of, for me, it's just mainly like just slightly lifting the rod tip. If you lift the rod tip, it goes up, and basically the energy that you're trying to imparting onto this lure, it kind of lets it slightly dart up, and it just settles.
Right.
And then it slightly darts and then settles. And that settling, usually when it starts slowly sinking down, if you have the attention of a fish, that's when it'll, like, there's a big mullet in front of me that looks like it's dying. I have to eat it. So that's when you'll get that strike.
So with Corkies, do you change up your drag while you're fishing with trout, or do you just typically keep all your gear around certain drag when you're fishing with, or do you change it up with trout and redfish, or so to speak? Because because if I'm fishing around structure, that's different. But if like if I'm fishing for redfish around structure and I'm working a certain bait, I got my drag all the way down and I'm horsing them out.
Yeah.
Or I'm playing them out. And what I mean by playing them out is, like, if these fish are big, you can't yank them out. There's probably not enough drag, or you got to have some kind of different set of equipment, but they'll run for it. So what I mean by playing it out, you set the hook, but you don't yank them out. You just hold it tight in tension and let him start moving towards you away from the structure and pull them out.
Yeah.
But for Corkies, the question is, would you change your drag, or is that dependent on the situation you're in?
I think for the most part with Corkies, I'm not changing my drag too much. I change drag for top waters. You obviously have to have it a little bit looser than what you normally would. I can't think of a situation unless you like you said, structure and stuff like that. Because since I basically just target trout with these, and the only time I ever catch redfish is when I accidentally catch them with these, because I'm targeting trout. I think maybe if anything, I'm in a little bit on the looser side, because I usually keep the rod tip kind of like in the mid, not down, but like in the mid range, not all the way up.
And you're not high striking. No, I was kidding.
Yeah, and basically that with these, especially if I have the sharp hooks, I do upgrade the hooks to the Gamakatsu or the VMCs. They're sharp enough where basically I'm not just like rearing back on them. I'm just kind of just lifting up on it whenever I feel that hit. They hit it hard anyways. If you feel the hits on these, these are some of the hardest hits that you ever get on a lure, besides the top water.
Right.
They get smashed some of these Corkies.
It reminds me of like a croaker bite, like when they
Yes.
hit the croaker. Like
Yeah.
that's what it reminds me of. You know, similarity. But yeah, me, I don't think I really adjust my drag too much on the. I do. I have taken people out and they got that bass mentality where they set the hook and they're yanking these, you know, trout, and it's like 18-inch trout getting reeled in like a dink, and I'm like, oh man, and they lose it before it comes. Like, oh man, I lost it. I'm like, man, you need to play that trout in. You don't need to.
And I think that's the byproduct of, because trout, they have a very soft mouth. I think one of the nicknames they have is a paper mouth.
Right.
And literally, you know, it's funny because if you fight out a trout for for any sort of amount of time, whenever you bring it closer towards you, you can see that hole.
Big old hole in the lip.
And then now, you know, it probably started off really small. Now it's like a quarter. Yeah. And basically, the only reason why you still have it on is because you're just keeping tension on it. So yeah, if I know I'm targeting trout, I'm just going to just kind of just slightly lift up and when I feel that hit. Now if I know I'm targeting redfish, I don't know why I would be throwing Corkies for a redfish, but if I know the redfish are here, I may hit a little, you know, give a little more energy onto that hook set, because they have that much harder mouth. But so, I guess another thing. So these, I don't think you need a specific special rod for this. They do make Corky rods, but what's your idea of like what's the best kind of rod to use for these kind of lures?
So I actually have them tied on different rods, but if I were to say, so FTU does sell a Corky rod,
okay,
and with their new generation rods, and that one's a little bit stiffer than, you know, that I typically fish for trout, and it does make a difference for me. I could feel the difference in it, and especially when you're working the Corky and you're fighting the trout on it. So, but I mean, I'm one of those guys that really like those light touches and the sensitive touch, and so sometimes I throw my sensitive rod. But if I was to say, hey, look, I want to tie a Corky on and I'm going to fish a Corky, like I have one tied on already, like on like a medium light rod. But I mean, I don't want to lie to you guys, and y'all see me out there and I got it on a sensitive XL or something, like, hey man, that's not a medium. I had one of a client call me out like, hey man, he totally remembered everything I said. And I had a DOA. It was a DOA shrimp, and I had it on like a medium rod. He's like, dude, that's not a light rod. I was like, yeah, you know, yeah, you typically want that on a lighter rod because it's more sensitive. You want to get it out there and, you know, the lighter touch. But, you know, sometimes I'm just tying it on a damn rod and just so I can get the bait out there.
Yeah.
But, you know.
I think one of the main important things that whenever you're throwing these Corkies are actually, they're pretty heavy for a lure. Right. For inshore, obviously, I know these offshore guys, they have those big giant ones that they throw out. But for an inshore lure, this is pretty heavy for what we use around here. And besides a full size super spook, I can't think of a heavier lure besides that and this one.
Right.
And for most of our arsenals, this is probably going to be one of the heavier ones that you throw. Because of that, I would, for the rods that you use, definitely want like a medium action rod,
right?
Something with a stiff backbone, but still something sensitive and with a light action tip for you to just kind of still have that give, for whenever that trout strikes. One of the things that I've seen is some of these people, they one of my we talked about Jay Lee. He's a shrimper out over here, a great fisherman as well. He has like flounder specific rods for flounder because they have that really, really bony mouth. Also really good for redfish. I can't imagine using something like this where it's almost like a broomstick. You know, it's like a 6'9", 7 foot rod. It has no give whatsoever on the tip. But that's so that he can drive that hook set home into a flounder. But if you have
Yes.
something like that for a Corky or any soft plastic and you're targeting trout, I would imagine if you were to give any sort of hook set, you just kind of just like rip it out of their mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you would need that fine combination of the stiffness of like a
Mhm.
medium action rod with a kind of a fast action tip, and I think that would be perfect for
Right.
throwing something like this.
Yep.
I guess another question we have that I've seen on here for Corkies is kind of where to throw them. So both you and I are a lot. We do a lot of kayak fishing, and for me personally, I do a lot of kayak, especially during the winter. I will kayak to locations where I can't get to, and then hop out and wade. Um, is there a time when you, even though you kind of want to, you shouldn't throw the Corky? I'm thinking of like when the current's really, really ripping. I think that it's
Yeah,
kind of
ripping high pressure days too. I'm not throwing fat boy. If the pressure's really high,
really
I'm not throwing a fat boy on high
okay.
pressure.
Why not? Why not? I want to hear this.
I just so for me, I go high pressure days. I shoot straight for the deep holes.
Okay.
That's all I do. I shoot straight for the deep holes, the deep pockets. I feel like there's less pressure. Well, it sounds weird, right? Because the more you go, the more pressure. But I think they try to get away from all the surface pressure by going deeper. By going deeper. So I'm not throwing a fat boy in 17, 18 feet of water. Kind of throwing those are the times I don't use them. And then if I see them blowing up on topside in the middle of summer, I'm not throwing a fat boy either. I'm throwing a top water. So it's really like assessing the situation most of the time.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it's like hey man, I'm out fishing for big trout and I'm looking for big trout. There's a high percentage of times I'm throwing a fat boy.
Yeah. I will. So I obviously there are whenever we're talking about all these scenarios, there's always outliers to any of these scenarios. Whenever the current is ripping is one of my big things where I wouldn't throw to top water just because it's so difficult to actually work.
Right. That's another good one.
And actually, if I'm drift fishing in a kayak, I'm not throwing a fat boy.
Really?
Or a Corky. Yeah, because like especially if it's in combination if you're drifting really quickly,
Right.
you're tossing it out
quickly.
there.
Yeah. If you're drifting quickly, yeah.
Yeah, it's very difficult. If the current will just take this and run with it.
Yeah, your bait's already behind you. You throw it on the front side and your bait's behind you.
Yeah, you got to think this thing sinks so slow that by the time that it gets to where you want it to work, you may have your 50, your 30, 40 yard cast that you made, you may have already eaten up 20 of it from just drifting. It just depends on how much, how fast you're going. I found that drift fishing with this, unless it's like dead calm, it's very difficult to work. If the current's ripping. Also, I don't ever throw these in the surf anymore. Just because everything under the sea with teeth wants to eat this.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I've had, one of my better trout days on the surf was we found them with top water. We were killing them, these nice, 18, 19, 20-inch trout and some bigger ones. They stopped hitting on top. We started throwing on these Corkies and they started hitting them. And then it turned out that after a while, we started getting these massive hits. And it would fight, and it would cut off. And it turns out we started catching all these sharks. And before we figured out all these fish were sharks, we lost like 6 Corkies. So that's like $60 down the drain right there.
Dang.
So yeah, I don't throw these in the surf
Man,
anymore.
best to use spoons in that situation.
Yeah,
some durable.
Yeah, something durable. But not the $8 to $10 lure, or I guess the 12 to 15 whenever they have those Pro Series.
Oh
now.
Man, we haven't even talked about it, the more expensive baits that we're about to talk to. So Quirkies is just one of them.
Oh yeah, Corkies is just one of them.
You can lose $15-$20 easy with the next lures we're about to talk about.
Are we talking about broken backs? Okay. We'll move on to the subsurface plugs. But They do make variations of this. Before we head off to the other subsurface plugs, they do make variations of this, and they can be. And I guess I'll just give a quick run through. So this is the Fat Boy. There's a smaller version of this. It's just a regular Corky. It's a bit thinner profile. That is available. They do have what's called a floater. What you can distinguish it by is that it will actually have a gill painted on here, on the side, and the gill. It's a floater. I think basically it's a subsurface Corky. It doesn't sink all the way down. It kind of stays under the surface, and it sinks very, very slow. I like to use the floaters, fishing over grass, especially during the summer. Those are very effective. They make a devil, the Quirky Devil, which is I wish I had one here, but it's a rat tail version of this. It still sinks very slow. It still has the cork insert on the inside, but it has a tail with a ball at the end of it. And I like to use that during the fishing over grass. They have the Corki Nothings. You can find those at Fishing Tackle Unlimited. The Corki Nothings is basically the devil, but it's just a plastic. They actually run like $2 to $3, and you can buy them. You can put a jig head on them. Whenever I'm fishing, if I want that really, really big profile and I'm fishing those deeper waters, I'll use a Nothing. And I will actually say it's one of my better performing baits in the Kima channel.
Whoa, hey. Let's calm that down a little bit, buddy.
Okay. Yeah.
Seawolf Park, you mean?
Seawolf Park, yeah. And then they actually have a couple of them which I've never gotten my hands on yet because I just haven't been to the fishing shows and the other places. But they have the Corky Peanut. It's a smaller version Fat Boy. That's what it looks like. It's a Fat Boy that you kind of shrink down from however long this is to a couple inches shorter. And then you have the vaunted Broken Back, which is a double jointed. It's a jointed Fat Boy. It has your regular Fat Boy, and then it has a tail at the end of it. And it creates amazing action. And a lot of people like to use those for those big trout. It's just that they run like $15, $20, it seems like. So they're expensive. So
yeah, I don't remember how much they were, but I remember throwing them. And you got to always fix that back tail. If you don't fix it, it'll mess up the whole bait.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. So that's kind of a rundown on Corkies. Very, very popular baits, especially for trout. I've actually caught bass on them as well.
Do you have a favorite color?
Huh?
Do you have a favorite color?
Day Glow and Pink Silver.
Pink Silver. Yeah. So one of your favorites? One of mine. Yeah. So I do like. It's not a Corky. It's a soft dine, but I really like the Roach soft dine.
Yep.
But I've never thrown like a Roach Fat Boy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm curious if anybody on here likes to throw the Roach Fat Boy. But I know I really like the Roach soft dine. For me, that's one of my favorite baits. Like when they're not biting those quite the bigger baits, and I'll tie that one on, and it's like, yes, got him.
And I don't know if this it kind of, I guess it falls under the soft dine like Merriel was mentioning. It's the Mirrodine version of the Corky. It's a Mirrodine. It looks like a Mirrodine, but it's instead of the hard plastic that you have your traditional Mirrodine, it's a soft plastic like this for these Corkies. It's kind of like if you merged them together, that's what you would come out with, a Mirrodine and a Corky, and also very effective. So yeah, that's kind of a short rundown of Corkies. And I know you're kind of itching to get to this one.
Man, we don't have enough time to talk. Man, we'll try to do the best we can about these baits, man. But I could talk all day about these.
Yeah. So we also a very popular bait now during the winter, and of course you can use them whenever. These subsurface plugs.
Do you have one?
I should have brought one with me, but I don't have one here. The kind of show.
Yeah. So it's like basically the small little hard plastic baits, and they usually have a lip underneath them for those guys that that are wondering what we're talking about. and they dive in the water a certain depth. Some of them barely underneath the water surface, and then there's some that kind of just they're just there in that water column, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes the harder you work them, the deeper they go, you know.
Yeah,
They
and
got
so
all
since
kinds.
I don't have one here to kind of show, for those of you at home and those of you listening, kind of what's your favorite one? That way we can kind of look at it and have an understanding of what it looks like.
My favorite one would be a Yoseri. Yoseri. I don't know if they make them anymore. The greenbacks. So it's a greenback with the silver kind of. It's kind of it's if you move it in the light, it kind of flashes like a shad.
Okay.
And I think it's got like a little red gill plate, and then I don't know quite know how deep that one dives. I think it's maybe a foot, right? A foot or two.
Okay.
The Yoseri Greenbacks. I like that one,
Is it
and the
because that
black
color is money?
because it's money on the water.
I
Yeah,
couldn't help. You kept saying greenback. I couldn't help myself. So
yeah, greenbacks, man. I don't know. I don't know if they make them anymore. I heard a rumor that they're going to stop making them.
oh,
I don't know
that's
why. It was,
unfortunate.
yeah. But I mean, they got so many of these baits. I mean, I think there's more of these baits than there is fat boys by a long shot. They have made so many, because I used to use bombers before I used that one.
Mm-hmm.
Rapala too, if they had them.
Yeah.
I tried different things out there. Those are the only ones that really come to the top of my head. But I ended up with the Yoseri one, the Yoseri Ghost, or the 3DS Minnow. Those
Mm-hmm.
are also good ones. I actually I throw the 3DS, and there's a bigger one that they have. I like that one. I really like that one a lot. That one might be my new favorite because I tend to catch bigger fish with that one. Most of the time. I'm not saying, well, I think the bigger bait gives you a higher probability of catching bigger fish. And I think that's why I like throwing that one.
Okay. So yeah, so these kind of baits, the one I like is the Rapala Rip Shad. Like I said, it's a long profile. It has a little lip. It dives like 2 to 4 feet kind of thing. And basically you work that water column, and it's called a rip shad because you cast it out there and you're basically just like, um, I like it better on a boat because I can stand up. And you can do it in a kayak, but I usually don't stand up in my Hobie Revo. But that way you can keep the rod tip down and you can constantly reel and you just rip it down.
Mm.
And so it floats a little bit. So basically you rip it and it'll just rip down, and then you let it sit and it slowly floats up, and that's when they'll hit it. And then you rip it again, and it'll go down. And with the lip, it does that wobble action as you rip it.
Okay.
A very very popular kind of these subsurface plugs, um, and yeah,
I'm going to drop a little hint for you guys.
yeah,
Sometimes in these colder weathers, try to seek like in the canals where they got like wooden docks and wooden structure, and try out them subsurface baits and these bulkheads and stuff like that, or by these wooden structures in the colder weather. A lot of people are successful with it. So just a little hint for you guys,
yeah.
something to try out.
And I will throw in the reason why the fish congregate there is because, especially in Galveston, um, a lot of the areas in the middle of the bay aren't very deep, and the deeper waters are areas that are developed.
Right. Right.
So it's kind of think about it like that. Um, and yeah, so what are I guess is it the same with the Corky, with these subsurface plugs, these Yoseris, these Rapala Rip Shads? Um, is that are you working these in a similar way, or are you just
No, man. So I get crazy with these baits, dude. I
okay?
pop them, I jerk them, I rip them, I work them slow. Man, I try to find whatever they do. Man, man, I can't explain how many different things I try with these baits. I don't know if they're designed one way to reel and cast, but
Hmm.
I've been in times where I'll cast out there to get. I'm going to show you an example. I've showed a lot of people that this technique. I'll go out there and I'll throw a bait and I'll reel it in. And if I'm going slow or steady, the smaller trout will hit it. But if I rip it, like if I throw it way out there and I start reeling it in real fast, like sometimes I'll get little nicks and then boom, I'll get the big hit. And sometimes just ripping it will get you the bigger trout or the bigger fish. And sometimes I'll throw it out there and I'm just popping it, reeling it, popping it, and that'll get the bigger ones to hit. It's just one of those techniques where I try different techniques and see which one works best for me.
Yeah. Actually, we have a comment right now.
I used to start off. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we have a comment like Samuel on our chat right here. Just change your cadence, and he's talking to somebody else. Change your cadence until you have results. Apparently, Stacy Gentry taught him that. Just work it, however you want, and whenever you get that bite.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I used to throw them slow. Like when I first started off, I used to throw them out there and just slowly retrieve it in. I'm talking about gradually slow. And that was one. And then it wasn't until I started exploring with these baits that there's so many different ways to work these baits, But yeah, you're right, Samuel.
Yep.
Would agree with you.
So, we have a couple more minutes here, and we'll just continue to talk about. So I guess before we head out, we have currently right now it's February 2nd. This is being recorded live on our Facebook page at facebook.com/One Last Cast Podcast. Starting tomorrow, February 3rd and 4th, Texas is basically under a winter storm watch. What's your we're basically in Houston. We're planning on getting down to the mid-20s, which is cold for us. What's your game plan going forward towards the next few days and the weekend if you were to fish?
Deep, hit them deep.
Hit them deep.
Yeah, hit them deep. Start off deep and then start working your way up to the shallows.
Yeah,
and seeing where you're gonna find them to start feeding. They might be feeding inside the pocket, like way down in the bottom, underneath in the deep part in the pocket, or they might be fishing, or they might be feeding on the way up to the transition to where it gets shallow. Or shallower. So that's how I would start off. As the day progresses, I think when the water starts warming up a little bit more, I think that's when we'll probably start getting more activity. And keep in mind, I'm just generalizing. I'm not saying you're not going to go out there and stick trout and, and sun up and stuff like that. But, for the most part, when the water starts warming up and the fish start becoming a little bit more active and being more successful.
Yep. I would definitely just kind of definitely target those deeper waters. I don't expect Texas Park and Wildlife to close any fisheries right now because it's not going to freeze. But they're going to be targeting those deeper areas. And of course, if you missed it, Merriel gave away an awesome nugget, and I'm just going to reiterate it. Don't give up on those canals and the structures around Galveston. They can hold some really good fish at this time of year. Just kind of my advice that I give to anybody in fishing is just work the water, work as much water as you can. I mean, that's why I like kayaking, because you can cover all that water. And that's why I like wading, because you're only, especially for bank fishermen, you're kind of limited to where you can go. But if you wade and you kayak, it opens up so much waters that you can have access to. And it just, I think it makes it easier for to locate these fish. We have a comment from Joseph here. What do you consider too deep? There
isn't one that I'd consider too deep. I've actually fished that deep. I don't know if you know this. There's a really deep hole in Offits, and that one's pretty deep. And I fished that one and caught trout in it. So I don't know if there's one that's caught too deep for me. But I am fishing a heavier jig head, Joseph. I'm fishing like 1/4 ounce plus. I've even thrown up to 1/2 ounce. So just to give you a heads up, but
yeah. So that little hole over in Offits, which is one of the places that they will close down if it gets too cold for fish.
Scratch that! I didn't say that.
Yeah, so they close that area and off its that hole because it's the one of the deepest waters around in Galveston, and they close it because all the fish congregate there whenever it gets really really cold. So it's like I think it's like 25-30 foot deep right there. And I think it's
Yeah,
actually in some areas it's deeper than that.
right.
Um, but yeah, it's not. I think always for trout, it's always about finding structure and those drop offs and depth changes. Um, I mean, of course, during these really really heavy freezes, it may be if you were able to fish an offits in that hole, it may be like kind of shooting fish in a barrel because they congregate there and they're there.
That one and when they close the Moses Gate, how deep is that one?
Oh, I don't know on the top of my head. I know it's deep there too.
Right.
So,
That's
but
another spot that's pretty deep. Not that
yeah,
you should fish it when the gate's closed and it's been closed for a couple days.
I
But
think
be
we're giving it.
careful. You don't want to be there. So definitely know when the wall's coming up because you don't want to be there when that current starts ripping out.
Oh
You'll
yeah.
be in trouble.
Yeah. Uh, but it's not about what is too deep. It's matter, I think, about finding those structure, those depth changes. That way that you can target those areas. And that's why I think the fish finder is really important. Finding those drop offs, whenever it drops from, even if you're fishing in 10 foot of water and it drops down to 15, that drop right there, that's where you want to fish. Or even something as small as it changes from that hard sand to shell and mud. That's a good change that you need to be fishing.
There's one
Um,
place that we both like fishing. That's a whole bunch of mud and shell.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's all mud and shell,
it's
and
all
that's
mud and
that's
shell. That
that's
whole
another
area.
place. That's another kind of, especially with these colder weather coming up. They're gonna push deep, but if you have an area where it has deep water and that mud and shell next to it or nearby, what's gonna happen is as you know, it's gonna warm up at some point, and whenever that water warms up, when that sun gets up, it's going to they're gonna kind of try to slowly make their way over to that mud because it's actually warmer right there compared to everywhere else.
Yeah,
So that's another place um, to kind of target and take a look at for the upcoming.
yeah. That's for our Texas City Dike people that listen to us. That one's for you guys.
Yeah, and if you're not aware, unfortunately, one of the fishing spots I think is closed for indeterminate amount of time. They did close Skyline Drive.
Oh, it
I think
is.
yeah, I think it's closed. They're
Oh,
doing some repairs onto it for now. So unfortunately, that's kind of a location that's kind of taken away. They closed a road, so I don't. I mean,
right.
you could probably get on the dike and walk down it, but you can't drive down the Skyline Drive and park and then go and wade where you normally
Or
wade.
you, or you couldn't park at across the Moses and come through.
Yeah, you could. I'm not. I haven't
Oh,
been in there.
yeah. That's just
Oh,
to
okay. Yeah.
help these guys out, these kayakers out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, man, that's a good weight spot. Wintertime, isn't it?
Yeah. I think the conditions have to be a little bit like you have to find the perfect conditions there. I've been down there plenty of times when I'm and also I haven't put my time in there, but I've been there plenty and I haven't skunked. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
Man, dude, I've been there, dude. I just so much stuff, man. Just
yeah,
when you feel like you like you found something new, you'll find a gut or some structure or something, and like, man, or a rock, like just a rock in the middle of nowhere, and like, man, that's wouldn't even expect it that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I think our coming up, and I can kind of give a preview of our next episode. We'll be trying to talk to the creators of the Knock and Tail lures. I do want to get his input on kind of lure making and also hopefully maybe some big news coming soon. We'll see. But yeah, that's going to be upcoming. We have a bunch of ideas that we're tossing around right now for future episodes. We're definitely going to go into maybe some of the freshwater, maybe some tournaments. Who knows? Uh,
Yes.
if you have any feedback, just leave us a comment, send us a message. You can talk to us at One Last Cast Podcast, facebook.com/One Last Cast Podcast. We're all the podcasting platforms. You can download us there. Yeah, we and also before I sign off again, I definitely want to re-mention for those listening, if you want to get 20% off on your Knock and Tail lures, you can go to just search Knock and Tail lures, go to the website, My Coast Outdoors, or and uh, and you can do your orders there. If you want 20% off of your Knock and Tail lure order, just type in the code OLCP 2022. You get 20% off. And before we go, Merrill, let's any more advice that you have for our listeners?
Oh yeah, I don't know about advice, but thank you guys for coming and visiting me at the fishing show. I mean the boat show. I'll also be at the fishing show. Just want to say thank you guys for swinging by. Tell just saying hi and appreciate it, man. Thank you guys. That's it.
Awesome. Again, we're if you want to join us live, we're live every other Wednesday. That's our schedule. We're going to try to keep every other Wednesday at facebook.com/one less podcast. Thanks again, everybody, and y'all have a good one.
See ya.